Good morning, Restoration Church. Welcome to one of the last episodes here in your Habits series. My name is Joe Derigo. For those of you who don't know me, I've had the privilege of working alongside of Johnny for many years. We worked together at Journey Church, did ministry together. Man, it was some great years. I am just super thrilled to be preaching to you today and preaching at Johnny's church. It's just such an honor for me to be here. You know, I remember the first time that I ever met Johnny face to face. He was interviewing to be the youth pastor at Journey Church, and we were right here down the street at Chili's, and we were just kind of get to know each other and doing some basic interview questions. And I remember very clearly, Johnny looked across the table at me and said, "I really want to work at Journey Church. What do I have to do today to get you to hire me?" Man, I was impressed with such, gusto, machismo. I was excited that to have a guy like him wanting to be working with our students. Of course, I had a few teenagers myself, and so I was thrilled. And, people ask me, "Hey, do you ever regret bringing Johnny on your team there at Journey?" And, sometimes I did. Like, I remember when we had a missions trip to Mexico, we were building a house out of wood, and he decided that it'd be a good idea to bring some hacksaws with him. I regretted it at that moment. But overall, no, I didn't regret it for a second. Johnny not only had a great influence on our students, my children, and our church family, but he's had a big influence on me. And so I'm grateful for him. And I'm grateful that you guys get to be led by him week in and week out. And so God bless you, Johnny. God bless you, Christina. And God bless Restoration Church. We're very grateful for your witness here in the Northwest Valley. I think maybe one of the reasons why one of the first hires that we ever made at Journey full-time was a youth pastor was because, a youth pastor really had a big influence in my life. It was shortly after I turned 18 years old that I went to a Fellowship of Christian Athletes Bible study at my friend's house, where I heard the message of hope for the very first time about Jesus. And I went home that night and I knelt down beside my bed and I said my very first prayer. I said something like this: "God, if you're real, I want to follow after you." And that message of hope that was shared with me that night has transformed my life and the lives of many other people since. I'm so grateful for my friends, Matt and Shannon and Mark, who cared about me enough to share the message of hope with me. I'm grateful that they offered me an opportunity just to hear and make my own decision about whether or not I would want to follow after God. And Matt and Shannon and Mark, if you're listening, I owe you my very life. And I'm just so grateful for you that you took the opportunity to speak to me and give me the opportunity to find hope. Hope. I love that word, don't you? Don't you think the world needs some more hope today? It has been said that humans can live 40 days without food, 4 days without water, 4 hours without your iPhone, 4 minutes without air, but only 4 seconds without hope. Now, I don't know if that's exactly true, but I get what they're trying to say there. Hope is critical to our lives. Wouldn't it be more awesome in our world if there was a greater amount of hope being spread around the world these days? After all, there are a lot of things being spread, right? COVID's being spread. Debates on mask effectiveness are being spread. Boredom and depression from being cooped up in our homes is being spread. Racial hatred, violence, riots, political ideology, conspiracy theories, and TikToks. Man, there are so many TikToks going around. Enough with the TikToks, people. Enough with them. I don't know about you, but I think it would be awesome, an awesome time for people of faith to begin to spread other things and to begin to spread the message of hope to a world that desperately needs it. And when you really think about it, after all, God spread the message of hope during a very dark time in history. And this light came into the dark world and transformed things. Wouldn't it be awesome if people of faith took that upon themselves to say, "I am going to be a person who spreads hope in the world, the message of hope in the world to others. Over the last few weeks, you guys have been working through this habit series, and Pastor Johnny asked me to speak this morning on another habit, one of the last habits you're going to be covering, and that is the habit of evangelism. And let's be honest, evangelism has got a bad rap in the world, and for good reason, quite honestly. I mean, when you hear the word evangelism, you probably have images that come to mind. I know I do. Images of very slick-looking individuals in front of a television camera in very nice suits, trying to get my money on, some televangelists or something. Maybe some images of a guy on a street corner on a soapbox standing up yelling, "Turn or burn, turn or burn." And that's like an image that comes to mind with evangelism. Or maybe a nice young man in a white shirt with a name tag on, riding a bicycle. And maybe that's what you think of when you think of evangelism. However, I'd like to save you from those images today and ask you to consider seeing evangelism as something different. Seeing it as simply spreading the message of hope to others. So hold off your judgment and don't tune me out. I'm just going to get practical here about evangelism and talk to you about how you can spread the message of hope in your everyday life. So when you seek to spread the message of hope to others, keep these few things in mind. First, realize that your life speaks way louder than your words. Your life speaks way louder than your words. Experts tell us that 93% of our communication is nonverbal. That's a pretty high number, but I disagree with it. I think it's more like 105%. Speaking as a father of 3 girls, man, those eye rolls are legit and powerful, and they say a lot. Man, communication ends up coming a lot through our nonverbals. And while experts tell us this, and it's come to their conclusion here as of late in history, I think Jesus knew about this early on. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16, we read this: "You are the salt of the earth," Jesus says. "But if salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way," Jesus says, "let your light shine brightly before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify God who is in heaven." We could certainly get down in the weeds exactly trying to figure out what Jesus meant about salt, what aspects of salt was he talking about, or talk about light and really get into the semantics of all of that. And maybe at a future date, that's something we ought to do. But I think we can all agree that Jesus' point is clear. We are to live in such a way to help create a thirst for God in the world, and to live in such a way that our lives become a spotlight shining on God himself. And the alternative, Jesus says here, is no bueno. None of us want our lives to be useless or worthless, only good for being trampled on a path. None of us wants a useless life. I know I don't. Now, when Jesus was speaking these words, I think it's key to keep in mind that in the first century, they were not new. You see, God, throughout what we call the Old Testament, was urging his people, his people of faith. We call these people Jewish people, but these people who followed after God and that had this unique community that was devoted to God, God urged them to be the light of the world to the Gentiles. Now, the Gentiles were simply anybody who wasn't Jewish. So God's idea for this Jewish community, these people of faith, were to live in such a way that they would be pointing everyone in the world towards him. Places like Daniel chapter 12, verse 3, Isaiah chapter 42, verse 6, you can look up later, but they explicitly give God's people the charge to be light to the non-Jewish world. They were not to keep to themselves, but to show the world how awesome God truly was by how they lived. However, instead of choosing to be the light, they walled up their cities and they kind of kept to themselves, and they lost their potency in the world. Ouch. Sound familiar? May it not be said of us, men and women. May we be people who remain flavorful and bright in our world. And may we be people who share the hope of God with everyone we come in contact with. Here's an interesting reality, and you can feel free to disagree with me if you'd like. But as I see it, the most powerful form of advertising is not truth, but it's proof. What sways our decisions to buy certain products is not really the facts, but it's the testimonies of other people that we know and trust that sway us. Have you ever gone to a restaurant and before you ever went in there, you checked the Yelp or Google reviews? Man, I don't go to any restaurant without doing that. Let's take this example. A company may have the best product ever. I mean, scientifically, it's proven they are by far the best product on the market. They have all the charts and the graphs and all of those kind of things to show that they have by far the most superior product. And they put that out there, right? They're putting it out there in their videos. They post it on Facebook on an advertisement that you see, or on some other social media platform, and you're scrolling down and you see it and you go, oh, maybe I should get that product. It seems like it's the very best. But before you purchase, you scroll a little bit further, and your friend Karen, your friend Karen, who doesn't know anything about the facts of the matter, says, don't buy that product, buy this one because it worked for me. This product worked for me. Which one are you more likely to try? I'm going to tell you, you're going to try Karen's product because you believe her, in her, you trust her, you know her, and it's not the facts that sway you, it's the opinion or the testimony of somebody else. Lame? Silly? Maybe, but it's reality. What we see in people around us, what we see in their lives, and what we hear from them has a great influence and impact on our lives and what we choose to do. And here's the good news, people of faith. If you choose to live your life in such a way as to display through your good deeds and the way that you live in front of others, you display hope and the message of hope that is found in Jesus. If you live in such a way to give that out, you not only have the proof on your side, but you have the truth behind you. It's a great and powerful combination. And that's why it's the first place that we must start when we discuss sharing hope with the world. We need to realize how powerful our lives really are and how loud they really speak. Practically, what does this mean? Well, it means that our calendar should be impacted. It does mean that my calendar should reflect the types of priorities that a person who wants to live as salt and light in the world, the types of activities that they really get involved in. It means that it should influence our interaction with others. It's easy for me to put my head down and go about my business on a daily basis. I'm a results-oriented individual. I want to get things done. I love checking off boxes. I love making lists of things to do and getting them done. And it brings me great joy. But I need to realize that God cares about people more than he cares about me getting my checklist done. And therefore, I need to care about people as well. And if it helps me, I need to put a checkbox on my to-do list that says, make sure you love the people around you. So at the end of the day, I can feel good about life when I check that off and say, yes, today I loved people well. It means it should, practically speaking, influence our social media posts. I know Pastor Giant talked about this last week. Do I post in such a way and do I respond to people in such a way on social media that I am creating a thirst or a taste for God in the world? And I'm displaying a light that shines on him, or am I covering up the light? This affects our relationships, our spending habits, our interactions with strangers, and the list goes on and on. So here's a daily reflection question for you to ask after dinner, sometime before you go to bed. Did my life and my actions today create a hunger and a thirst for God and point people with a bright light towards God or not? And as you reflect on that question at the end of the day, give yourself grace where you failed and say a prayer that, God, tomorrow when I wake up, I want to be more of a child of light. I want to create a greater hunger and thirst for you in the world through my life. Please, God, help me to be more that way tomorrow. And man, it would be awesome if every day we all just kept moving a step further and further in that direction for the good of God and the good of the world, the good of ourselves. I hope we would go that direction. But there's more to spreading the message of hope, of course, than just living a good life well. Because a good life lived well will draw attention, and then people are going to ask you questions about your life. And I'm reading in through First and Second Peter. It's a couple letters that this early follower of Jesus wrote to some friends before he died while he was in prison. And in First Peter chapter 3, I read this: "But in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander." I read here in these verses that if we live our lives in such a way, eventually somebody's going to ask us why we live in this way, and we should be prepared to give them an answer. In the early days, I used to think of this as this charge of being prepared as something that I really had to study up on and really had to dial in intellectually on. But I've come to see this a little bit different. I mean, that was super helpful for me. I've learned a lot about how to respond to people and a lot about people's ideas, and I've gained a lot of information from others on this matter. But I realized that my need to respond really just needs to be simple and sincere. That if I'm going to really give out or spread the message of hope to others, I have to keep it both simple and sincere. Let me explain. Most interactions I have with people who need to hear the message of hope are not all that complicated. They're far less complicated than anything that I've ever studied up on. Does it mean that people don't have legit objections? No, people do have legit objections, and it's good to know some answers to those things. But most people are just looking for you to share your heart and your experience with them, not dump a bunch of facts on their plate. So it's helpful to keep in mind, too, that while there are some longer gospel hopeful presentations in the New Testament, most of them are extremely short and simple. I was blind, and now I see. Come see the man who told me everything about my life. If I have wronged anyone, I'll pay them back right now. Today, Jesus says, you'll be with me in paradise. And of course, the thing he said most often, come and follow after me. Come and follow after me. There's not too much complexity in that. It's simple and it's sincere. And Jesus used it quite often. We don't say this, as much in our day. We say something close to it. Where Jesus would say, come and follow after me. It was very common in the first century for a teacher to have a student and come and learn from him in a mentoring type of relationship. It's not as common for us, but there are some common things, especially when it comes to the commercial side. Instead of saying, come and follow me, maybe a advertiser would say, try it before you buy it. Or we would say to a friend, you got to check this out. Just try it. Trust me, just try it. Would be maybe a more modern equivalent. If Jesus shared hope through an invitation to try him out, why do we think we need a dissertation with footnotes ready before we ever share the message of hope with anybody who's asking us questions around us. I think it's helpful to keep in mind, of course, that it's not me and my fancy, well thought out words that are making the difference in a person's life after all anyway. This is spiritual work, and it's God who's doing the heavy lifting. I am simply just the one that's giving an opportunity for somebody else to find what I've found. As my friend Mark used to say, I'm just one beggar showing another beggar where to find some food. Keeping this in mind has helped me remember that God is the one who is going to use my life and simple words in a person's heart. It's not my responsibility to change anybody. It's my responsibility to give people the opportunity to find the one who does change lives. Hope will only come when God does what only He can do, transform the heart of a person from the inside out. I am only called and I'm only able to give anyone the simple opportunity to take advantage of what God is doing inside of their heart anyway. I have to remember to keep it simple. Not only simple, but sincere. Let's just be honest here in church. Most people have a pretty good BS detector. Some are really good at it. I have friends that they hear somebody talk for maybe a minute and they can tell whether or not they're telling the truth. Other people, they buy into it for a while, but eventually a tree will bear fruit that everybody can taste, and a seed will sprout to reveal what type of plant it truly is. That in due time, if you are not sincere, you will be shown for exactly what you are. What does this mean? We need to practically live out the golden rule, to treat other people the way that we want to be treated. Do you want people to be sincere with you? Absolutely. So we need to be sincere with other people. We need to walk a mile in their shoes. We need to share hope with them, not try to preach hope at them. We are humble. We admit when we don't know what we don't know. And we admit that we don't have everything all figured out. I think it's interesting that Jesus, when he describes himself as humble. He realizes even though he knows everything and he's got it all figured out, that it's best to be humble in your relationships with others. We need to be genuine. Of course, we share hope boldly, but we care and love the people that we are sharing with. Listen to me, church. Whether or not they respond to the hope that we offer them. My mind drifted back to a story that Jesus of Jesus interacting with these 10 dudes who had skin disease, and they all come to him and they all want to be healed. And Jesus says, go and wash, go and do this. And they all go. And on their way, while they're going, one of them gets healed. Or excuse me, all of them get healed, but only one of them comes back to follow Jesus. And Jesus says, hey, where's the other 9? Where'd the other 9 go? Now think about this with me. Jesus knew before he did it that all 10 were going to get healed. And he knew that only one would come back. But the scripture doesn't tell us that Jesus gave them all back their skin disease. He didn't heal them so that they would follow him. And he didn't give them their disease back because they didn't. He healed them because he loved them, and he simply values people. Love must be sincere. Romans chapter 12. Sincere love is genuine love, where you want to offer hope to people because it's a good thing for them, not just so that you can get your point across. Sharing the message of hope is our deepest desire, but it should never be our ulterior motive. Let me land this plane. give us a few practical tips here on what this could mean for us as we kind of wrap things up. Here are some practical next steps for you to kind of give a try. First, let me encourage you to open your heart, to get alone with God and to reflect and just humbly get before him and say, God, are there places in my life or times in my life here where I really haven't been salt and light to the world, where I've allowed my life to become inward focused, or I've put barriers up, or I've become harsh towards other people to get my point across? Is there something, God, that I need to get right in my world and see differently? Please reveal it. And then I'm going to encourage you here. That's one thing to do, but then take it another step further and get around some trusted friends and say, can you help be a mirror to me and show me in my life where things need to change? Is there any way where I could be better at being salt and light in the world and representing God as I share the message of hope? Ask God and ask some trusted friends to be honest with you. Open your heart. Second, fall on your knees. You got to remember that sharing hope is a spiritual thing, and you need God to do his work in the lives of people for them to really embrace hope. One of my friends, Terry, gave me some little phrase early on. It's probably been about 16 years ago or so now. And he said something, and it's really, really been helpful for me over the years. He said, Joe, don't talk to people about God until you talk to God about people. And I thought that was really good. Even if it's just a prayer right before I speak with them, or, God, help them to really find hope in you. God, help them to find joy. I know they're really struggling. God, give them the help that they need, and make yourself known before I ever try to share the message of hope. I know there's a spiritual component going on there that I can't see, and I need God and his spirit to be working to make it really land and really hit home in their lives. So fall on your knees. And then third, take the opportunity this week, any opportunity that you can, to just give another person the opportunity to find hope. Man, you're going to be blessed if you do. Because the reality is, even though you can't see it, folks, God is working in the hearts and lives of people around you. God's doing things inside that you don't know about, and God's working there. So when you get involved in that process of offering hope, you actually get to see God's work firsthand and get to be close to where God already is working. And you can join him in that mission that he has to give hope to other people. You never know. You never know who God is going to bring your way, who God is hoping that you can be a messenger for. God is like cheering you on, saying, please share with this individual so that they know that it's me working in their life. I am so grateful for Matt and Shannon and Mark, who took the risk to give me hope. I'm sure that when they were looking at my life, they thought, this guy's never going to get it. I mean, me and my mullet, we were very stubborn back then. But man, God has transformed me because of those three. He's changed my life. He set me on a new path. He's given me great hope. And you never know who God could bring into your life where you could be like they were to me. Man, when you have the chance this week, spread some hope to others. I'm pulling for you. I'm praying for you. And I believe in you. Let me just pray right now, actually. God, thank you. Thank you that you brought hope physically into the world through Jesus. Thank you that he pointed the way for us and gave us a great example to follow. And God, I pray that you would help our lives to really be a great example of what you can do in the life of an individual. That God, our lives would inspire hope. Our words, our deeds, our actions, God, would inspire hope. God, give us a nudge at the right time to share hope in a really simple and sincere way with the people that you cross our paths with. Thank you, God, in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for having me here, everybody. Have a great week and hope to see you soon.